I'm John Travis in lockdown in Sydney, Australia, in a hotel on the 25th of November, 2020, talking to Jan Tritten in Eugene, Oregon on the 24th of November, 2020. And
My
we
mom's
met,
birthday. She would be 97 if she was alive.
oh, oh, um, we met not 24 years and a half ago at the Mount Madonna MotherFriendly Childbirth Initiative creation. And you always, I had this immediate connection with you. There's something you just, of all the women I met, I remember you the best, even
Oh,
though I haven't
really?
seen you since then. There's just a warmth, and I don't know, you're a natural to be a midwife. But I want to start with who you are and why. What led you to do the work that you've done, since the work is pretty well documented, but some of your backstory is probably a mystery to folks, and I love to pry and dig it out of people. So let's start with where you were born, what your parents did, influences, siblings, early experiences.
I was born in Los Angeles, and my mother says, when I came out, the world said yes, and I said no. And that's how she describes me. And I think that held pretty well for um, all the work that I ended up doing. My mom and dad were the most wonderful people. We never saw them fight. They traditional 50s, mom made the dinner and dad worked, but they were just super parents. I have only one sibling, my sister. She's 8 years younger, and we are so close. Over the years, we've done conferences together. We've probably done 30 of our, oh, maybe 40 of our conferences together. She's been conference staff, and we've just gotten really close as time goes on. And I'm
Wonderful.
so blessed to have that, my sister.
Yeah. So what was,
My
you said you were an only child for 8 years, and then she came along. So that's a good age to not have a lot of
Yeah.
sibling rivalry and
Oh, there
help
was a
out.
lot at first. I used to say she came along,
Oh,
and I used to get all the attention, and now I don't get any. But those are the early years. But now it's just, I'm just so blessed to have her. My mom did have one pregnancy in between, and it was a baby that she lost at 6 months. And when my mom and dad went to the hospital that to deal with that, they left me alone in the house, but we had a little tiny house behind us that other people lived in, friends lived in. And the alarm went off. His alarm went off to go to work, and it went for probably 30 or 40 minutes, and I was scared to death. That's kind of my first super traumatic experience, is that alarm clock. So you can see it's a fairly charmed life I've lived if alarm clock is my trauma.
but
I've
what
been
was your
blessed.
birth like?
My birth, my birth with for my mom was very much like my first birth. So she had a saddle block, and so did I. And my mom and dad tried maybe 4 or 5 years before they had me, so they really felt so blessed to have me. And her birth went fairly well. She was real close to her doctor, and I have a feeling that she got to hold me right away, but I'm not so sure.
Uh-huh.
But and then when I went to have my first home birth, which was my second child, she said, "Well, I don't really think you should, but I know you're going to do whatever you want to do." They knew I was a rebel.
And do you know if you were nursed?
Oh, I was nursed for 6 weeks. And
Uh-huh.
that 6 weeks has held me in good stead because I have super good health. All my kids have aches and pains, and I don't have any. So I've just been just fairly lucky, and I'm pretty sure it was that 6 week start. And then when my sister was born 8 years later, she nursed her for about 3 weeks. But she also
Uh-huh.
has really stellar health. So it's probably that colostrum and even those few weeks that are helpful.
Yeah,
And of
you
course, the
probably,
longer you can breastfeed, the better. I
yeah.
nursed each of mine about 3 years each.
Uh-huh. Who had aches and pains?
My kids have more aches and pains than I do. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Even
yeah.
though they got 3 years of breastfeeding, well, that kind of casts doubt on that theory, but I'm sure they got lots of other stuff from it, if maybe aches and pains.
Yeah, their health is really good. It's just little, muscle and things like that. I don't
Uh-huh.
think breastfeeding helps muscle pain.
Yeah. So then you had probably you were just about second grade when she was born, and what was school
Yep.
like for you?
Well, I went to Catholic school. They had made me go to Catholic school, which I didn't like. When I was in first grade and I was just getting used to it, I was really shy. They took me out and put me into Catholic school, and I did not make that transition well. And but in second grade, I had just this really sweet nun, and her name was Sister Gaudentia, and she always asked about my sister. So I was fairly bonded to her. And then, long about fifth grade, I said, I can't do this anymore. And they let me go into public school.
Uh-huh.
So that was a little bit better.
Okay.
School was never my forte, even though when I met my husband, we he was he had me go to college. I had gone to college for maybe 6 months and quit and thought it wasn't my cup of tea. And then he said, "Oh, just dust the cobwebs out and go back." And then I did really well. I pretty much graduated with honors and did 5 years and got teaching credentials. Teaching credentials in order to be a midwife. Makes sense? Right. My whole life didn't make a whole lot of sense.
So let's work up to college then. How was high school, and were you a cheerleader, a nerd like me, or a jock, or what?
I
What was?
was feisty and rebellious and didn't want to do it. I don't think I learned anything in high school. I did okay. I would just kind of skip school and be a little rebel. And then in the last, maybe a couple weeks before finals, I'd study like crazy and get B's and C's, just anything to get by. But I felt high school was pretty useless. So that's
And
why I didn't last too long in college until I met my husband.
and this was what part of Los Angeles where you're living?
Oh, no, no. By this time, when I was in going into seventh grade, we moved from Los Angeles to Auburn, California. So a much
Oh,
smaller town. Yeah,
yeah,
much
I know
better.
Auburn. Wonderful fig trees in the old part of town I used to get to pick.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so
That's what
then you met your husband. Was he?
I met him. Okay, so I met him when I was going to work at the mental hospital, which was in Auburn. And he was a psychiatric technician there, and he had his patients down to some kind of clinic. And I was in my little hospital gown, and he walked over to me and said, "Oh, maybe let's go for tea and crumpets someday." So that's how I
Crumpet.
met him. I met him in a mental hospital. My kids love that story. Because first you say, I met him in the mental hospital, and then you tell the story.
And did you have the crumpets?
I didn't even find out what crumpets were until I got them at Trader Joe's decades later. I mean, many decades later.
But that line must have worked.
Yeah, it must have worked. Yeah, it did. We've been married for 54 years now.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so then you went back to college. How long had you been together when he talked you into your academic
It's
continuation?
interesting because we went to college together. I was going to Sierra College in Rockland, which is near Auburn, and he
Uh-huh.
was at Sac State. And I said, "Well, if I'm going to go back, you're going to go back," because he had already had two
Oh,
and a half years. So we went back, and we had probably a third of our classes together, which was really fun because and he had a kind of a brain where it took him so long to learn anything, and he remembers some of that stuff to this day. I learned it immediately, got A's and forgot it, but he got B's and C's. So I mean, it's yeah, the system does not award people quite right.
yeah, yeah.
No way to test that longevity of memory of what you've
So
learned.
then you graduated together or near each other, or how'd that work?
Yeah, just about the same time I graduated. He graduated a little bit before I did,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, and
And
then we
what was your major? What were your interests?
interest was I took social science, which was history, sociology, and anthropology, with a majoring on anthropology. And then, and he did the same. And then after that, we got in California to get teacher training was a 5th year after your degree. I don't know if they do that anymore. And then what we got in California was lifetime teaching credentials. There was about 2-year window that you got these lifetime credentials. And ours was, I think it was K to 12, maybe not that early, but anyway, so we had teaching credentials, and he tried it for 6 months and didn't care for it.
Uh-huh. But you then taught?
No, I never taught. Became a midwife instead.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah,
Well, then, how did that happen?
trained to be a teacher and became a lay midwife, quote unquote.
Well, that sounds like an interesting transition. How's that come about?
It came about by having a home birth. So my first birth in the hospital, as I said, was a really tough, where they gave me a saddle block at the end. I was just having a really good time in labor. I loved being in labor. And then
Really?
they came in when I was close to complete, and they put a saddle block, and I said, no, I'm having a natural birth. And they said, this is a natural birth. And they stuck that needle in my back. So I went around with this pain in my heart, still have that trauma. Penny Simpkins, sweetheart, said, if you want to get rid of that trauma, I'll help you. And I said, no, the trauma is what makes me go forward. So the next birth was a doctor. Dr. Tom Duncan talked me into having a home birth. He was doing some home births in Eugene. He did 3 of them here. And mine was, he was there for just a few minutes before she was born, really quick. And he said, well, if all births are like that, then I could do more home births. But he just did 3 because it was like an 1.5-hour drive for him. So that was very providential too, because it had such a influence on me dedicating my life to midwifery and birth through Midwifery Today and through having a home birth practice.
And now, first of all, how did you get to Eugene from Auburn?
My husband and I had wanted to go to Canada. It was during the Vietnam War. And we wanted to go to Canada, and they were tired of Americans. They didn't want to let us in. And so, okay, well, we'll just go north. And so we ended up in Eugene, or we ended up in Oak Ridge, a little town about an hour out of Eugene. And then when we finally found our home and acreage, we moved to Eugene. So we're on the outskirts of Eugene in the country, about 10, 15 minutes from town.
And you've been there a long time then?
We have been here since 1974. Since 1974.
Wow, 46 years. Now, it's unusual to have a doctor talk you into a home birth. It's usually the other way around. How did that come about?
Well, he was a new doctor, and he was just doing a few home births. He had a really good birth philosophy. He just had a philosophy like a midwife. He operated very much like a midwife. And so I just wanted to go have a nice natural birth in a hospital. And he said, well, he's doing some home births. And so it just ended up very providential, I think, because it led me in this direction. That birth definitely led me in this direction. And then that's 2 girls that I had. And then my next birth was a boy, and it was December 27th. So it was very, very icy out. And so I told my midwives, come on over, but you don't have to hurry. And he just slammed right out, and my husband had to catch him. And my husband says, you owe me $100. He still says, you still owe me $100 for doing your birth.
For the interest, no doubt.
Yeah. And I said, oh, you got your boy. And he says, oh, let me see his genitalia. He didn't quite believe it.
I guess all he had to do was look.
Yep.
So you had midwives, you thought you were going to have midwives for that. And how?
Well, they were my partners. They were my midwife partners. We were in the middle.
Oh, so you'd already turned midwifery by then. Okay, so then how did you get into midwifery? You were inspired by the home birth, but then there must have been a few steps in between there.
There was after my first baby was born at home, which was my second baby. I kept reading my childbirth books, and my husband says, "Why are you reading your books? Because you already had the baby." And I said, "You know what? I think there's something more here." And indeed there was. And then we found Marion Tepke McLean is this wonderful human being. She was a nurse midwife, and she did classes for us out toward the coast. So we drive out to her place maybe 3 to 4 times a month, and she'd do classes for us. And she'd do classes, and we started. I joined a birth co-op, and so we were doing births for women who wanted to have babies at home, whether we were super trained midwives or not. So she would teach us about hemorrhage, and by golly, we would go and have one. We didn't cause it; they just happened that way. She'd teach us about shoulder dystocia, what to do, and by heavens, we would have one. It was just this beautiful, providential. I wouldn't recommend people to do that anymore, but the 70s were a really unique time in home birth, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of how we did it. And then for a while she came with us and did births with us, which was really helpful. And she was just so gracious, because she said, I learn as much from you as you did from me. And what she felt she learned from us was the relationship, the way we would relate to the women. And of course, she would be, we would, let's say we were doing a prenatal, and she would be explaining something to the woman and looking at her, and then looking at us, and then looking back at the woman. So she was literally this graceful teacher. And then she wanted to teach us more. So she went back to Frontier Nursing Service, where she had done her midwifery, and she got the curriculum, she trained, she kind of learned how they were teaching, and she brought a curriculum back for us and did the parts that applied to us. Like, she didn't do the pharmacology, because that didn't, the couple things that applied, and most of it did apply. And it was in this, was the late 70s that she did that, I think, maybe the early 80s. And so the curriculum we got was a very different one, probably, from what they're doing now. I mean, I think there's still a really good service. Frontier Nursing Service trains really good midwives, and I think they're one of the most embracing of holistic.
Yeah, they were using my wellness inventory back in the 80s. I had forgotten all about that Frontier, that the name out of my past. Where were they? I've forgotten.
Kentucky.
Right, yeah. What city? Like Lexington?
Oh, let's see. What was it? It was where Mary Breckenridge was. I'm not recalling.
Okay. Are they still in existence?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I don't know if they're there, because they did one of the first online classes, where they would do online classes with their students, and then I believe they would meet 3 times with the students for hands-on stuff, and they were one of the originators.
But now your specific training to become a midwife yourself, that was facilitated by the woman whose name I've forgotten already?
Marion Tepke McLean. She's just an amazing mentor, and she still is. If I have a question, I can ask her. And she's a nurse practitioner and a certified nurse midwife, and just this incredible human being. Just so blessed to have her for my mentor.
Like a mentorship is how you did it, rather than formal classes or something. Now, was this before?
She did formal classes with us, in the early 80s, but by mentorship, I mean, she's written for our magazine Midwifery Today, from the very first issue all the way to the present, number 136. So she has been just
136.
Yeah, we're on number 136 right now.
Wow, it's a lot of issues.
We've been doing it a while.
What year did it start? Well, actually, we'll get to that later, but I'm just curious now.
It started in 1986, and it took us 1 year to get the first one out.
That sounds about right.
And then after that, I think we were not very on time, but we only missed one. Now we're very on time. Got a staff of really good record keepers, and so we have been able to pull it off and make it on time for a couple decades anyway.
And what was your first birth while you were the primary midwife like?
the first birth that I was a primary midwife. Oh, there's just so many. I'm thinking that I can remember my second birth, and it was a woman who lived out in the country, and as soon as her baby was born, her husband just said, "Oh, you did just like the horses." It was just this really interesting little uh, comment that he made. There's just
Like,
so many beautiful experiences.
uh-huh. So, and how long were you actually in practice then?
About 12 years.
Uh-huh.
About 12 years. And then
Roughly how many,
recently, hmm,
roughly how many births was that?
around 300.
Uh-huh. And then you're going to say recently?
Oh, and recently, maybe 3 years ago, we went down and did births with our friend in Ecuador. He at birth center, and just beautiful. Just one of the most loving places that I've ever been in. Just really
Ah,
kind, loving, hugging kind of place. And that was really joyful to get to do a few births. And then
uh-huh,
occasionally, if I'm in Europe or Japan, I'll be invited to a birth. Just occasion,
uh-huh,
not like Barbara Harper, where Barbara's really kind of actively doing them, but yeah, just keep hands in every once in a while.
uh-huh. So,
And in China, we did several. We um, we did several births in a hospital in China, which was very interesting because like they had no running water to wash their hands, and
in a
it was
hospital.
just so resource poor. But they tried so hard. So I was with Carol Gauchi, another midwife friend of mine, and she would try and show them how to do the births, just and they would watch her, and then they tried so hard to follow what she was doing. So a birth happened, and they brought in a mat, and they had the mom on the floor, just, you know, following her body. It was just so interesting how hard they tried to imitate what Carol was showing them.
Mhm.
So that just I've just had really fascinating experiences around the world. It's so amazing what I've gotten to do in my life.
Now, lay midwifery was fairly new at that point.
It kind of resurged with Raven Lang in the was it the mid 70s, about the time that I had my first home birth,
Uh-huh.
I think is when it was resurging.
I might have heard her name, but say a little bit about that.
Raven Lang, yeah, she's a midwife. She did a book called Home, I think, with really beautiful graphic pictures in it, photographs in it.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, she might be somebody to interview. I believe she went into some kind of alternative healthcare practice from there. So she didn't stay in midwifery forever, but she really was one of the pioneers.
Yeah, if you can connect us, sounds like a good candidate to.
Yeah,
Uh,
lovely.
I have. I think you're actually the first midwife I've interviewed. I've only moved into the infant wellness arena fairly recently, but I guess Barbara Harper. But um, so I want to, for our viewers, document what the atmosphere was like, and this is Oregon in the 70s. Like when I tried to find a midwife for my daughter in Mendocino County in the 90s, it was like trying to make a drug deal. No one wanted to talk to me. We wound up getting a woman from Arizona who had just moved to the area. No one else would talk to me.
In Oregon, an interesting thing happened, and that was that the Attorney General of Oregon said that home birth was not a medical practice as long as we didn't carry medication. And so that Attorney General saying that opened up home birth in a big way for on the fence legality, or a legality, I suppose. And so we didn't really practice under fear of the government coming after us at that particular
When is
window
that?
of time. Pardon me?
When, when was that he made that declaration?
Let's see, 70, it was sometime in the late 70s, maybe
Oh,
77. We could look it up.
well, that roughly, that's,
Hermine might know that exact time. Hermine is the lawyer in Oregon. I think you have interviewed her.
no, I don't know
Oh,
who.
oh, you should. I'll put you in contact with her because
Okay, good.
she's the one. She's one of the few lawyers that has really, really gone to bat for midwives here. And
Uh-huh.
I'm sure you get really good information from her because you're uh, interviewing such a wide variety of people.
Yeah. So any other outstanding midwifery stories before we get to the origin of the magazine and your present interests?
Oh, just every single birth is just, it's the most amazing thing because we learn so much from each one. You can do all the didactic work, all the going to school, but where do you learn? You learn from each birth. And we just have to be thankful for every family that trusts us to be with them.
Huh.
And so I just really believe that's where it's experience. And experience, hospital experience is not the same thing. It's not the same thing. In a home birth, the thing I love about home birth is you have the uniqueness of each home, so you have me in this little tiny house in the library, or I thought about doing it in my greenhouse, or it's like the personality. Home birth brings the personality, this whole personality of this baby, their animals. Do they, is there going to be a dog there? Do they have cats? Is there a parakeet? It just makes it so beautifully human. And that's where we learn. That's where we learn the most. I really wish every doctor and nurse midwife could go to at least 10 home births and just see and feel that difference, because I think we could really make change if they could
Yeah,
they could truly understand from deep down in their soul what it's like and what the difference is.
yeah,
And then of course having good backup is key. I mean, we things go wrong, we need to have good skills so that we know when things aren't going right, and transport, not do things above what our training or ability are. Like, I never did twins or breeches because I didn't feel like I have that training. But now midwives are the only ones that have that training, those few who have really concentrated on that. So at
mhm.
every conference, we teach twins and breeches, even though I personally wouldn't do it myself. But boy, there are some really, really good practitioners that have had that experience. And doctors don't have that experience anymore, sadly.
No, they don't. They just, if in doubt, cut it out. The old surgeon's model.
Yep.
Model.
Yep.
So were there other,
The
did you have part?
the other thing, the thing that gave me so much hope for the medical field was the knowledge of the microbiome. When that came up 5, 6, 7 years ago, I thought, oh, now they're going to change because the microbiome is so important. And
Yeah,
it's better in a home birth, but they can do things in the hospital to create that microbiome, not take the baby away, put the baby skin to skin with the mom, and all of the beautiful health benefits you have from that. Didn't change things though. That really made me sad because that was my hope for hospitals, that knowledge, because those obstetricians must have that knowledge, but
I don't
they're not
know.
putting it to work.
Now, I'm thinking of, the bacterial seeding from a vaginal birth compared to both my granddaughters are C-sections and have
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of issues that are either vaccine or C-section, from not getting seeded. Um, but what in addition to the picking up the flora from the vaginal secretions, uh, is there much skin to skin flora exchange? I'm not
Yeah,
familiar with that.
yeah. Put it, as soon as the baby can get skin to skin, it makes up for it. The skin to skin, and keeping the baby skin to skin, nursing, breastfeeding, all of that really helps. Really
Yeah.
helps.
And to me, the clamping the cord too early, and it just, most babies seem to be born a pint too low.
Exactly, exactly. I've been on a marathon of watching Call the Midwives on Netflix, and they cut
Uh-huh.
those cords right away. Just boom. It's like, oh my goodness, they don't know what they're doing, what they're robbing that baby of. But
It's crazy.
I guess they were trying to be true to what happened at that time.
Yeah, well, it's still going on, isn't it? Are they most places
Yeah,
clamping it early?
their delay is a minute or two.
Yeah,
That's
and it seems to me squeezing the placenta is going to force blood out as the placenta is contracted upon. You're going to get more blood um, through the cord, but it
and
just
most
seems like
midwives just leave it. Most midwives leave it until the cord stops pulsing. And then, of course,
uh-huh.
some people do the Lotus birth where they let it fall off naturally.
Right. But even if it's not pulsing, it seems to me that the contraction of the uterus on the placenta is going to squeeze blood through. You wouldn't see a pulsation, but
Right.
it would be
That's
like,
true. Yeah.
and uh, and that's like the last ounces that you need. But I've never even seen that addressed. It just seems basic to me. Anyway,
And it's
did you
true.
have any colleagues, or were you doing it alone, or what was your?
Oh, no, 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 no. I always did it with a partner because we felt like there's two lives there. And when I
Uh-huh.
first started out, one of the midwives that I worked with was working in another practice, and they had a situation where they had to stop a hemorrhage and resuscitate a baby. And so I always just had
Oh,
that philosophy, we go with a partner. So I had
yeah.
Marion was our partner for a while, and I had two different partners. Julie was one of my partners, and Julie and Marion and I had a practice, and then Monica and I had a practice. So I kind of had
Mhm.
two practices going on at the same time, but always believed in a partner for the two lives.
Uh-huh.
Many people pull it off, and that's their philosophy, but it's really good because it doesn't happen often that you have a double emergency, but you sure can.
Yeah, it only takes one.
Hmm.
Now, what did doulas come in around the time you were in practice, or was that later?
It was later. Yeah, that was later. Yeah.
I loved hearing Phyllis's story about how they accidentally discovered doulas from a research assistant.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know that?
that Marshall Klaus and yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah,
And it's
I
and every
so
hospital birth should have one. And doulas and midwives are learning to work together, fairly well.
mhm.
There's sometimes some struggle, but typically they can work it out. A lot of times
Yeah,
if you have a partner midwife, then having another third person, plus family, but each birth is individual, and people will do what they feel is best.
right. And I
But
guess
I
if you got
really,
two midwives, one could double as a doula, and
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
yeah. So now, the origins of the magazine. Have we gotten to that stage yet, or other?
um okay, so I had been doing home births for 12 years or so, and I thought, well, I think I'm going to write a book because this is a lot of interesting experiences. So I started organizing all these chapters and put my chapters together, and then I really felt like this lightning bolt came, and God said, "Sit down." And I sat down, and he told me I was going to start a magazine, not do a book. And he gave me right there the chapters. We do a meet the practitioner, and all the different departments we'd have. And
Mm,
so I started working, took all that stuff that I had working on for chapters of my book, and started the magazine. Got hold of a couple people that might be able to help facilitate this, and then we started working. I put it out. I believe I put it. We sent a mailing out, I think, to about 1,000 people, asking if they wanted to subscribe because everything was paper then,
yeah.
and got maybe 300 or 400 people who subscribed to this magazine that was going to come in 4 months, which ended up, closer to a year. But we got that magazine out, and that's kind of how we started. And I put a little bit of money into it, and maybe $3,000 or $4,000. And we worked for free worked for free for probably 15 or 20 years, and then got to where we paid a little bit, and now have a great staff that gets paid, you know, hardly anything, but we're keeping it going. And then I don't take a paycheck because I'm doing okay on, my Social Security and so forth.
Uh-huh. So what was your first issue? How many did you print? And
We printed 1,000 and they went pretty fast out the door.
uh-huh.
And so, then we printed a little bit more and upped it a little more. And so we have kept back copies to sell. And we probably have almost all the back copies still to sell. And maybe we're out of 15 of them. Somebody just ordered a number 17 from just I called her and yeah, she said, "Oh, I want to buy number." I said, "Well, it's on the shopping cart. Go look."
Oh.
And we had an office for a long time. So we rented an office downtown, and the rent was so high. My daughter said, "You know what? I think we should buy an office." So we bought a little office in the kind of the industrial area, and we were there for 22 years or something like that. And last January we sold the building and liquidated everything. So I've got all these pictures and little videos of us clearing everything out and moving home. So we had moved home in January just as COVID was starting, which
Oh,
it was just like these kind of divine lightning bolts seemed to hit us
yeah.
with really blessed good luck, right? So
Uh-huh. Now, tell me a little about how your staff developed. Who were your first partners, employees, whatever? How did you find them? And
well, one was a partner that I was working with, and another woman just wanted to help out. So we got that first magazine out, and then somebody whose birth I had done helped out, and then they all wanted out of it at different times, but I couldn't get out of it because I had started it. I was
sure, baby.
If I had wanted to quit, there's no way. But I kind of stay with things, 54 years marriage, midwifery today for since 1986. So I guess I probably would have stayed with it anyway. And I like doing it. We're trying to hold on until conferences can start again, because conferences is where we make enough money to pay the payroll. We're never ahead on anything. And with no conferences, we're just kind
Yeah.
of just trying to hold our own and hobble along.
Right.
We got one small PPP loan, and just hoping we can hold on until summer where we might be able to have an event.
Yeah. Now, 87 would have been desktop publishing was brand new. The laser writer was about to come out. Were you doing it in PageMaker, or how did you do
Yeah,
your layout?
I think we were doing it in PageMaker, and Jill and I were getting all these paper copies that we would then glue on to the boards that you're supposed to, and then mail them off to the printer, and they would be done that way. And then when it became electronic, it was just like, oh, what a dream that was. That was fantastic. But we had many, many, many issues glued to paper and mailed
Yeah.
in.
I did our Helping Professional book that way, and I had to glue the illustrations into the printed pages.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, glue the photographs on, and yeah, just
I did it
Jill and I
on
would be up till the middle of the night putting that stuff together in my kitchen or in the office.
I did some all-nighters with a book once, and we would do like, oh, I've lost my train of thought. But yeah, with Mac Plus, didn't even have a hard drive when I started out. It was
We had an
1,000
external hard
dollars.
drive. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the good old days. So as it evolved then, and you have, when did you stop doing paper versions? Or are you still doing them?
Just maybe it was 3 issues ago. I think 3 are electronic, 3 or 4 electronic.
Mhm.
Yeah. And the nice thing about the electronic is you can do so much more because things are hot linked.
Yeah.
Having the membership part of the website, we've got, you know, videos from conferences. We've got so many different things. A number of back issues. I put back issues on 80 through the present. So there's just a lot you can get in with the membership. So it's kind of a mixed blessing. A lot of people miss the paper, and I do too, but it was not sustainable at all.
Yeah, so few are. Now, how did your circulation grow? You printed 1,000 the first time, and have you reached a peak? Are you still growing, or what's the?
Well, we reached a peak, and I thought, well, maybe we'd go up to 5,000. I think the highest peak we reached was maybe 3,400, and then it started slipping until it was down to, um, in the last few issues, I kept going, okay, well, it gets down to 1,200, we'll stop printing. And it got down lower and lower and lower, and people just didn't want print. The people who want it really want it, but it just became so that, okay, if we're going to keep going, which I really felt like we needed to keep going, things, I believe that the world still needed midwifery today. So then we transitioned over, and it's been a fairly smooth transition. We have the best staff. We have I think just the best editor in the world. She and I had worked together for about 10 years, and then she got a job somewhere else, in the medical cannabis industry, where she could make, much more money. And then she said, but I'll be back. And by golly, when she retired, she came back. And so she's our editor again. And I just love working with Cheryl. And then
Oh, good.
Tom's our webmaster, and he's brilliant and just so personable and fun to work with.
Uh-huh.
So, and our layout person's the best we have ever had. And so we still have her advice on putting what we do is we send out an article just about every week or so, and then put it all together for the time that the magazine would go out. And then it'll go together with a cover and the photo album and, whatever else will go in there. And then that'll go out to people, popped
Uh-huh.
as one. So it's worked out pretty smoothly, considering that we're all working from home. The communication isn't quite as easy as sitting down
Yeah.
and talking, but especially during COVID, it was just such a blessing to be out in January. We were going to,
Yeah.
what we were going to do is meet in restaurants, meet in our favorite restaurant for our face to face. But then when COVID happened, we haven't been able to do that. But we're all looking forward to this being wrapped up enough that we can meet together in a restaurant. And that'll be, I
Yeah.
think, a little smoother for communication.
Yeah. So just going back to when we met in '96 and the MotherFriendly childbirth initiative down there in Mount Madonna, and
That was great, wasn't it?
what an experience. Yeah, I met so many people. I still, from Ray Davies, who was just
Oh, I
wild and
love her.
crazy.
I love her.
I think she was the first one I picked to interview because I knew it would be wild and crazy.
She's a midwife, isn't she?
Um, I'm trying to think. I think she does doula training, but
Okay, I thought she was a midwife for a while.
she might have been. I'm just. It becomes a blur. I've interviewed over 100 people,
Oh my
and
goodness. I'm honored that you even wanted to do me.
oh no, you were top of the list in the infant. Well, I started first with my wellness colleagues, and then there were all these holistic, then integrative medicine people, some of whom I knew and some of whom came later. And so I rounded that out. And then I thought, well, I got to get to the infant wellness, because that was my second career when I realized, I think it was, Gene Liedloff's, when I read Continuum Concept, whoa, wait a minute, we're locking the barn door way after the horses left.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met Jim Prescott at an APA conference.
Uh-huh.
And he's the one that invited me to Mount Madonna. We were roommates, and I met Suzanne Arms. All three of us we were late registrants, so we were stuck in another building across the road from the center. And that totally turned my career upside down. It was like,
That was an incredible meeting, wasn't it?
yeah,
That
yeah,
was the most incredible meeting, the most incredible things happening there.
yeah. So I've been tracking all these folks down. I wanted to do Penny Simkin, but she said she's too busy, and maybe I can talk her into it when she's
Okay.
less busy.
What about Ina
I don't know.
May? You should do Ina May.
I want to. Barbara Harper said she thought she could reach her, but she hasn't. Do you have any way of reaching her?
Yeah, I'll give you that contact later.
Okay, good. Because
I
yeah,
I call her every once in a while, about every month and a half or so, just check in, see how she's doing.
oh, good. A dear friend of mine had two of her babies at the farm that Ina May delivered way back when.
Okay.
But she's lost touch with her. And the other person that I've been trying to track down um, is Mothering Magazine.
Oh, Pegy O'Mara.
She's not answering. I've left voicemails and emails, and do you know if she's healthy or what?
I'm not sure. I haven't checked in with her in maybe a year. She does that website, PegyOmara.com. You could check and see if she's got fresh things on there.
Yeah, I pulled an email address. Well, actually, that was the same one I already had from earlier. But yeah, I've got 450 names on my list, and I'm going
Yeah.
into this 100. So
Wow.
it's each week I think, well, who would I like to track down this week? It's like the flavor du jour.
Yeah, there's so many great people.
Yeah. Well, historically we've come pretty much up to present time, but are there any big pieces I've missed along the way, or any?
Well, I think the thing that we at Midwifery Today have pulled off that's the most amazing is conferences. Because we've done conferences in so many different countries, the Bahamas, Jamaica, Japan, China, Russia. And the thing about that is those face-to-face meetings, they yield so much. They yield such a synergy from each other, people getting together and they'll work on a book project. Okay, let's work on that website. Let's do this. Let's do a video. And I think that face-to-face, I haven't even considered doing online conferences. People say, oh, well, you could do the online conferences. It's face-to-face that is Midwifery Today's calling, because what comes out of face-to-face is very different. People that are hurting, you can hug them in person, you can love them, you can encourage them. And people at conferences would say, a lot of midwives would say, I was totally burning out until this happened, till this event in Germany. And I'm going to go back, roll up my sleeves and keep doing it. And those are some of the best midwives and doulas that come to our conferences, and then encouraging each other in different countries, and maybe there'll be 160 to a couple hundred people. And then, we have class monitors and we have all the speakers, and these speakers just bring just the best information, both scientific and heart-filled and soul-filled. And so I think that's Midwifery Today's greatest contribution, is those conferences.
Since I've never been to one, I'm glad you said that. We tried two conferences with our alliance, one at Mount Madonna and one at Santa Sabina, and they were a huge amount of work. They were wonderful, but we couldn't economically pull it off. So I'm impressed that you've done so many, and I have much more appreciation for how much work it is.
It is. We've usually had a really good conference coordinator. We've had just Anita, my conference partner, and I would find the venue and get that set up, you get the contract written, and my daughter looks at it because she really looks at things carefully, and sign the contract, and then get ready to go. And then Anita and I would make the program, ask the speakers. It's just an interesting, I think I get a total oxytocin hit when I'm planning conferences. I absolutely love it.
What
And
a
so
gift.
it's totally a calling. And the nuts and bolts, and we have to have somebody that does nuts and bolts, because you don't trust Jan for that. But I can do it when I have to. I'm too busy talking to people to get people registered.
Well, I hope you have another one and it's nearby that I can come to it, because I'd like to experience that. And
Yeah, I think I'm going to do, we've done a couple. I go to this beautiful little Hispanic church, And we've done several events there because he just loves having midwives at the church. And so I'm hoping to do that first because we don't have to go very far. And then we'll probably have one on the East Coast. And then Germany is still slated for the third week in October. So I am hoping that our COVID thing is in tow by then, because I'm totally
Uh-huh.
looking forward to it. And it's always like having a reunion when we get together. And so with this year off, it's going to be just, I can't wait for the hugs. I can't wait to
Ah,
see the teachers and all the registrants and everybody ready to learn. And
mm.
we learn so much from each of the people who come. My friend from Nigeria came to the last one, and just I have been so blessed to make friends all over the world. I cannot believe what a life that I've been called to lead. It's just so touching to me.
And you're a
The
natural
people.
at it. As I was saying at the beginning, that you stood out at Mount Madonna. It's like, who is this woman? I got to get to know this woman.
Well,
uh,
you know what, Jack? Why don't you come to Germany? I will give you the conference, no fees. If you just pay your way and stay, and you would be so blessed.
yeah,
So think about it.
I shall. The only way I get to Australia is on miles. I live on
Uh-huh.
Social Security too, and
Yeah.
my my income is pretty marginal. But I'd love to. We did get to Europe a couple of years ago on miles, and I gave a couple of wellness talks in Czechia and Poland, and so I might be able to set that up again. That could help.
Yeah, if you could
You know,
set up some talks that would pay
yeah,
for your coming,
yeah,
or come to Eugene, that's close.
yeah. That I can always drive up there from
Yeah,
California.
uh-huh.
Well, what a delight.
Oh,
Any parting words for future generations of people we hope will be watching this maybe after we're gone?
midwifery is all about love. The more love that you can give, the better midwife you're going to be.
Wow.
So remember that love will rock the world.
All right. What a fantastic word of wisdom for conclusion. So thank you. I'm going to end the recording and thank you so
Thank you.
much for
Thank you
sharing
so
yourself.
much. Okay,
Okay.
cheers.